Well, that certainly escalated quickly. Hey everyone, this is Joe, in general, your resident reason and evidence enthusiast. It is Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th of October 2017. My goodness, look at the price of Bitcoin. In less than 48 hours since doing my previous Bitcoin analysis video entitled Next Stop 7000, we have seen an over $1,000 increase. This is the video from a couple of days ago, as I just said, and we were hovering here at about $4,800 roughly. And as you can see here on the live price bitcoinwisdom.com website, it's the Bitstamp exchange priced in US dollars. We topped out here at $5,846. Man, congratulations to all that have been hodling, and I certainly hope you have not been the opposite of hodling just yet. So what I want to quickly talk about today was an addendum or a difference to this video here, Next Stop 10,000. So in this video, as I said, I make the case for 7,000 US dollars based on the Bitstamp exchange being the next major up target before we see a large retracement of, between sort of 30 to 40% down from there. Now, I'm still going to stick mainly with that $7,000 mark for various reasons. I definitely don't think it's going to be much lower than 7,000, not 6,000, not 6,500, much closer to the $7,000 US mark. However, there's something I want to show you, and it may potentially indicate an even higher potential price. I'm not going to say it's going to go there for sure. I'll stick with 7,000, but it's just something that I want you to think about. And I guess I wanted to verbalize it just in case it actually does go there, to say, hey, I actually thought about it. So this is what I want to show you. So this is, as I said, the bitcoinwisdom.com website, but we need to go back in time, Marty. So let's go to the 3-day time chart, and we're going to have a look or starting from the price of, or the date, I should say, of around about November of 2015. And this is when we came, I'll pop out to the weekly, this is when we came, off that major high of 1160, the low of 152. That took quite a while to get all the way down there. And then we consolidated through time for a while. And then at around about September of 2015, we started our bull run once again. Now, in November of 2015, let's punch that in a little bit more. There we go. We started these successive runs of peaks and then retracements, and then a peak and then a retracement back down to the previous peak, or a little kind of hovering around that, sometimes a little pierced a little bit low. Then we came back up again to a peak and then a retracement back to around about the previous peak, the previous high. There was a little anomaly here where we did have a run up, but it didn't go anywhere near as high as, say, from here to here, and we actually retraced, quite a fair way down through this previous peak. And of course, we've this is another anomaly here where we came up and had a retracement and we didn't hit back to a previous peak. But once again, we then broke through and high, made an up target and came down to retrace again to touch that previous high. So while it's not a hard and fast rule, it tends to, more often than not, in this current bull market, as I said, come off break through a previous high and then come back to revisit it. So let's just base it on that, and we need to do another bit of calculation. So what I want to do is calculate the percentage retracement. How much percent did it retrace from its high? Okay, so let's do that really quickly. So here's this first high, as I said, in November, and we topped out at exactly 502, and then we retraced down to exactly 294. So let's call it 500 to all the way down to 300. Now I have a percentage calculator. This is at percentagecalculator.net. Funny name. And we've got the percentage increase and decrease. So from let's call it 500 to 300. What was the percentage decrease? When we calculate that, it's bang on exactly 40%. I know it was 502 to 294, but roughly it was a 40% retracement. Okay, so that's the first one. no worries. So let's go to the next one where we did come up through that peak. We peaked here at, I'm saying the word peak about 10,000 times, and at this high of 778, let's call it 780, and then we retraced back down a little bit past this previous high and a low of 465. So let's call it 780 and 465. Just trying to build a case here potentially for this higher price, 780 and 465. So what calculation do we get? We get 40% again, roughly. All right, no problems. That's a couple of 40%ers. Let's do this one to this one. So that's the high of 1140 and the low, let me just pop that in a little bit easier so you can see it, and that low of 751. So let's call it 1140 and roughly 750. 1140 and 750 when we calculate that. Okay, 34%, right? No worries. That's a 34% retracement from there to there. Now this is the anomalous one right here, where we really didn't come up that far before we had a significant retracement way back down to the previous high. But let's just calculate this retracement once again. So we've got the high of 1350 and the low of, that was that 1350 to 891 retracement. Cool. 1350 to let's call it 890. Calculation 34%. All right, so interesting. So now this is again the period where we did not come back to retest an old high, but it does happen every now and then, of course, in this bull market. But what's the high here? So this is where we came up to that high of 2980, and we had the low of 1830. So 2980 and 1830, 2980, 1830, calculation 38.5%. That's pretty close to 40%. I would suggest. No worries, that's that one. And this last one that we've had just recently, where we came up to the high of 4980 and that low of 2972. Let's just call it 2970. Let's pop in some different numbers here, and 2970. Calculation 40%. Okay, all right, so here's an interesting pattern. Now, of course, patterns do not mean that it's always going to play out. Of course not, right? Of course not. But here's a pretty solid pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 6 peaks and troughs. 4 of them have been almost exactly a 40% retracement, and 2 of them were at about 34%. So I guess we could comfortably say somewhere between 30 to 40% retracement, much closer to 40%. So let's use 40% retracement as the guide. So that's the first part. Just keep that in your mind, 40% retracement. Now, the second thing I want to show you is linear Fibonacci extension. So we're going to do this exercise all the way again, and we're going to go back to that same spot, and we're just going to pop in some, as I said, linear Fibonacci extension. So right here. So what I'm trying to look at is where the price came up to, and did it match with any particular key significant Fibonacci extension levels. So again, that high of 502, that low of 294. And when we zoom that out maybe just a little bit, okay, so did that come close to any particular level? Okay, so here's the 1.618 extension level, or the 161.8 on this website right here. You may need to put this on full screen. I would probably suggest you put this on full screen because these numbers are quite small. So put it on full screen, and if you're watching this on a cell phone or mobile phone, sorry, I can't make these numbers any larger. You may just have to squint. But here, right here, the 161.8, that's nowhere near it. That peak right there, nowhere near it. That's the peak of that 780, and as you can see, it's much closer to, although not reaching it, but much closer to the 261.8 at around about 830. So we didn't quite get there, but it's much closer to the 261.8 than the 161.8. Okay, so that's the first one. All right, now let's do this one. From the high there and the low there. Now, where does this peak come to? Let me do that. Okay, so that's around about there. Here's the 1.618 of 972. Well, it busted right through there. And it's probably closer to, it is technically closer to the 261.8 of 1200 than it is to the 161.8 of 970. The actual level, as I said, was 1140. So it's almost a little bit above the midway point, but it's technically, it gets closer to the 261.8. All right, that's that one. Let's try the next one. Okay, which one? So we've done that one and we've done that one. All right, so let's do this one right here. Now this is the anomalous one here. And that's where you can see that actually did come pretty close just to the 161.8. But this was the one where it only came up not that much higher than this previous high, and it had quite a significant retracement. Again, about, was it 40%, 34 to 40%, but way below the previous high. So that's that kind of strange little one there. Of course, patterns don't always play out. So that's that one there. But it did have, again, a 34 or 40% retracement. Now let's check out this one to this one. Now this one really sailed through both the 161.8 and the 261.8, all the way up to and piercing a tiny little bit above the 423.6 linear Fibonacci extension, again from this high and this low, and that's where we peaked at about 2980. So there's certainly precedence for going even higher than, say, the 261.8, but that's I would still call that anomalous. Anomalous? I've got to figure out whether that's a word. I think it is. It's definitely out of the ordinary, okay? At least in this particular bull run so far, we tend to come back to previous highs so far. It doesn't always happen, but tends to. All right, and lastly, let's do this high and this low. And did we come up to any particular Fibonacci level? Lo and behold, we did. Once again, we sailed through the 161.8, and we actually touched close to and pierced a little bit above the 261.8, and that's when we had that level of 4,000. Oh yeah, that's the 4,980 that we just recently had. Okay, so keep those two things in mind: the 34 to 40% retracement. Let's call it maybe 40% retracement from a significant high after breaking through a previous all-time high, and the fact that the linear Fibonacci extension usually goes way over the 161.8, goes closer to the 261.8, sometimes even higher to the 423.6. Okay, so here's the question. Here's the big kicker. Let's do the extensions from this high of the 4980 and this recent low of the 2972. And what do we get? Let's pop this on. Actually, what I can do is I can show you this. No, actually, I will do it right here. Okay, so this is on the max setting, Bitcoin Wisdom. You may see it jump up and down a little bit because it's just a stupid website. Sometimes it does jump up and down. So here we go. Here's the 161.8 at 6,200. See what I mean? See what it did at 6,220. I will just wait for it to sort itself out. Or else I may even go over to the tradingview.com website, quite possibly. But what I'll show you right here, yeah, it's not going to do it yet. It'll do. There we go, right there. We have the 261.8 level of 8,228. So that's the 161.8 of 6,200 roughly, the 261.8, which, as you've seen before, prices tend to go closer to the 261.8. You also have the 423.6 at 11,400 something. I don't think we're going to get that high. If anything, we're going to come, I think, possibly there's a case to be made. It could possibly come closer to that 261.8, as we've shown here a few times, where the prices come, here's like your 1.618, it sort of comes a lot closer to the 261.8. So what's that 261.8? That's about 8,228. Okay, let's put that into the Fibonacci, the percentage calculator. Let me just get rid of this. And let's also assume that after we come up to, we have to also assume that potentially this time, just like the pattern has played out numerous times before, that when we come up to a significant high point, a significant peak, we retrace back down and we retrace back down to a previous significant high. So the current previous significant high is at 4,980 level. Let's call it $5,000 because it's a psychological value. Once coming up here, I think you'll see a lot of buy orders sitting at the $5,000 level rather than the 4,980 level. I'm sorry about this jumping around thing. It's really annoying. But let's pop in that 8,200 and let's do the exact one, 8,228, and let's call that 5,000 and hit that calculation. 39.2318%. Well, god damn it, I would certainly call that as close to 40% as, you know, as many of the others calculations that we just did then. So very interesting. Okay, so that would be a 40% retracement, which would be also be coming back to visit a previous high right here of that $5,000 level. Okay, and that 8,228 level also happens to coincide with the 261.8 Fibonacci extension level, which we've seen here, which I think if you go back and have a look, you'll see that when the prices broke through a previous all-time high and when it topped out, it tended to top out closer to the 261.8, and sometimes I think in one case it even, or maybe one or two cases it even hit it quite closely. So that's what I'm saying is could also be a possibility. 8,200 roughly. Let's call it 8,200 to 8,300. That could also potentially be the next major up target before we have a large retracement of between 30 to 40%. Now let's do some little, let's play around with this percentage thing for example. Let's say that we do come back to visit 5,000 at some point. So let's say it's only a 30% drop. Okay, if it's a 30% drop, where would the price go to? So if we make it say, what would that $7,000 mark? If I pop in that 7,000 to 5,000, what is that mark right there? Calculate that. There we go. So that's a 28.5. That's pretty close to 30%. So again, this next stop $7,000 one, which I should get you to pause and check out if you want to hear why I made the case for that. I think that's still definitely in play, but I want you to keep your mind open to the possibility of an even higher price. Would I be trading accordingly? Well, I wouldn't be trading accordingly on anything that I say, of course, because it's not financial advice. And I'm just holding anyway. So just so you know, I am not trading it myself. I will not be looking to put any sell orders in at 7,000 or at 8,200, for example, because I just buy and hold. I generally don't trade in and out of Bitcoin and fiat currency because I don't. I just like to buy and hold. So if you are a trading person, I want you to do your own research, look at some other people's videos, do your own technical analysis, etc. I guess the last thing that I wanted to show you, and I just drew this in, this is for my subscribers. I just drew in, you may notice from the previous video right here, I have, where are we? I'll show you. Oh, you can't see it. But where are we? Right here. Right there. I had 1, 2, 3. I had this trend channel, and this trend channel drawn in. I hadn't drawn in this one yet in the previous video, but I've just drawn it in. It's an equal distance from here to here. It's the same distance from here to here. So that's the next trend channel. And if we have a look at where the price would sit at if we hit that trend channel. Let's go right up. That's, if we kept going up in the next couple of days even, you would see a price hitting of about 8,300, and that tends to top out at that top end of that trend channel right there. Sorry again for all this movement. It's just the bitcoinwisdom.com thing. So isn't that interesting? Now, I'm not saying that the price is going to go crazy hog wild over the next few days and go straight to 8,300, but it's just interesting where that top end of this new trend channel hits, as you can see right here. I mean, we could potentially, I'm sure we could come up and have a retracement and, go up and down for a little bit, but this trend channel is now in play once again. So interesting times ahead. I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope that was easy enough to listen to. This was a bit more of an off-the-cuff video. Even though my videos are kind of off the cuff anyway, this is even more improvised. I'm sort of going through this as I go along. I did a little bit of preparation, but I just wanted you guys to have a think about that potential higher level, around about that 8,200 level, in not necessarily instead of, but keeping that in the back of your mind, including that next stop 7,000 as well. Make sure you watch that video if you have no idea what I'm talking about. And of course, if you want to stay updated with the Bitcoin price and other crypto stuff, ICOs and all that, and firearm stuff, I do other sort of political sort of, right-leaning kind of stuff as well. Hit that big red subscribe button. 6,095 subscribers as of right now. Welcome to the newbies in the last couple of days. That's it, gang. Exciting times ahead. Stay safe, stay informed. Speak soon.